Hey, what's up guys, Benny here and welcome to another Apex Legends video. We're halfway through Season 1 and though not much new content has been added, there has been some updates that have massively changed the meta within Apex Legends from what the best guns are to who the best legend is in Apex. And that's what we're going to focus on in this video because there is one legend that has been completely transformed since the game's launch and is now my go-to legend if I want to help my team win as many games as possible, and that is of course Pathfinder. As I'm sure you're aware, originally the big boys within Apex were the worst legends to play as because having a big hitbox would more than likely mean you would get killed, especially as the game really catered towards close quarters combat and long range weapons like the longbow and G7 Scout were pretty terrible to use. But Pathfinder was among those terrible legends because his hitbox was broken. You could shoot him through the legs and it would still class as a hit, which would have you tearing your hair out. But it was one of the biggest changes that Respawn have made, is that Pathfinder's hitbox is now actually lined up with his character model correctly, which is one of the reasons he's become one of the best legends, because he's quite gangly when it comes to his arms and legs. If enemies aren't aiming for the body, it's quite easy for shots to not connect with Pathfinder, especially if he's using his abilities to make him as mobile and quite difficult to keep track of in a gunfight. But in this video, I'm going to teach you how to be the best Pathfinder that you can be, not only for yourself, but for your entire team, as a good Pathfinder can completely transform how his team plays, from making sure you've always got the best map position, making sure you can get the jump on your opponents, and keep moving around quickly so that it's hard for enemies to keep track of exactly where you are if they're trying to hunt you down through gunfire sound. So first things first, let's take a look at Pathfinder's abilities. As Pathfinder is all about making sure you've got the ability to be in the best map position, his passive allows him to use these relay beacons that are dotted around the map, which will reveal the location of the next circle, meaning you can be one step ahead of other teams and get the best map position. I personally find this more useful towards the end of a game because as the circles don't really move that quickly, and if you get caught by this circle, it doesn't really do that much damage. So it's not the most powerful passive in the game, but it can be useful from time to time. So if nothing's going on and you're by a beacon, it's worth activating it, but don't risk your life to see the next zone location. It's not worth it. We then have Pathfinder's tactical ability, which I feel has one of the biggest skill curves in Apex Legends, and that's his grapple. His grapple has a whole bunch of features. Its main use is to, of course, help Pathfinder get around the map, whether that's on top of buildings or ledges. You can also use it to swing yourself along, a bit like Spider-Man. This can either be to get around the map or get out of a gunfight, which is what I find myself using it most for. You can also use the grapple to pull enemies towards you if they're trying to run away or you want to try and punch them, which is pretty useful from time to time. I'll talk about the grapple a bit more later in the video, as it's without a doubt a thing that you need to master in order to get the most out of Pathfinder. Then you have Pathfinder's ultimate, which is his zipline gun. This creates a zipline that anyone on the map can use. And the zipline gun is the ultimate game changer with Pathfinder, not just for you individually, but for your entire team. If you have a Pathfinder playing correctly, this ultimate is, in my opinion, the best in the game. This will help give you an advantage in every situation that you'll ever find yourself in Apex Legends. You can use it to move around the map, get on top of unreachable locations, forcing enemies to attack you using your very own zipline or one of their own, but instantly giving you the high ground or power position in most situations in Apex. The number of Pathfinders I see in the game that aren't using their zipline as much as they can to help get around the map or get in more powerful map positions is insane. It's also got a pretty fast recharge time, meaning you'll most likely have one for every major gunfight that you and your team get into. But I cannot stress this enough, this helps your team win so much. Always be thinking, when playing as Pathfinder, is there a place that we would ideally want to be? Whether that's on top of a set of rooftops or on top of a wall or cliff. If the answer to that question is yes, then use your zipline gun and tell your team to use it as well. And that's the important thing when using the zipline gun, is to make sure your team are also using it. Otherwise, you'll find yourself getting miles ahead of your teammates. And then the ultimate that should be giving you an advantage is going to cost you, as you'll end up all separated, which is the worst thing that can happen to you in Apex Legends. So those are Pathfinder's abilities. The more you use them, the better you'll get with them. Just remember to stick with it, as there is a real learning curve when it comes to Pathfinder. Now, we already had a little look at Pathfinder's Grapple, but it's important to know how to get the most out of it, and that's all about momentum. In order to cover the most distance with a grapple, you need to make sure that you know how to use it correctly. What you'll want to do is aim at an edge of a wall, for example, while running towards it, then look in the direction that you want to swing and jump once you fired the grapple. This will allow you to swing with the grapple, which is perfect for getting around corners, which also makes you hard to hit, allows you to cover the most distance, and most importantly, helps you get into hard to reach areas that is going to give you a positional advantage. But one of the best things about the grapple is the fact that it's got one of the shortest recharge times for a tactical ability in Apex Legends, so you have the ability to use it a lot. And this is going to be important for you to do. One thing I would recommend to get used to the grapple if you haven't really used it before is to land in a quiet area of the map, such as the swamps, and just spend a few games practicing with the grapple. You want to get to a point where you're able to get to exactly where you want to be every time you use it. Also, to learn how to gauge the max distance of the grapple so it connects with what you're aiming at every single time, because it is those small margins that will make you the best Pathfinder that you can possibly be. Just remember, the grapple is all about momentum when using it for movement, but you can also use it to connect to zip lines that are above you or just out of reach to help make you move around the map even faster. Also, you can use it to pull people towards you. This is something I find myself only really doing at the start of a game before anyone has managed to get hold of any weapons, but it's definitely a fun thing to do, especially if you do it to an enemy when you're both on a zip line. It's badass. I mentioned weapons a little earlier on in the video, but there's a couple guns you'll want to prioritize when playing as Pathfinder, because I feel like as a legend, he has the potential to get the most out of them, and that's long-range weapons, including the G7 Scout, longbow, and Kraber sniper rifle. Now, I'm saying this because I want you to always be thinking about map position and maintaining distance between you and your opponents whilst playing as Pathfinder. And if you do that and are using weapons that excel at long range, you'll always have a huge upper hand against anyone that you'll face whilst you're playing as Pathfinder. The G7 Scout is a beast of a single shot weapon which uses light ammo and really is a perfect all-rounder and has a fairly high fire rate to go along with it. So it's a bit more forgiving if you miss a few shots, unlike the longbow, which packs a serious punch, and if you're able to land headshots, can drop any enemy in just a couple of shots. But of course, the Kraber is always going to be the best overall long-range sniper because, first of all, it's a legendary, and to go along with that, it can take down most enemies in just one shot to the head, even if they have level 3 armor. So try and get the high ground with your zipline and force enemies to come to you. And if they end up using your zipline, you can get some really easy kills, as they're pretty much a sitting duck. Also, another thing to help make you the best Pathfinder possible is learning how to push. Now, one thing I have personally started doing with Pathfinder, along with using long-range weapons, is using that zipline to push straight into enemies as much as I can. If I see there's a building nearby some enemies, I'll use that zipline to take that high ground and then use my G7 Scout or longbow to take them down using the rooftop as cover. You'll be shocked at how big of an advantage this will give you. First of all, you get that positional advantage for you and your team, and the element of surprise most of the time if they've not seen you coming. I cannot stress this enough. Get into the habit of applying pressure on opponents with that zipline and grapple while making sure there's the most distance between you and your opponents to make it a mid to long range gunfight. Therefore, giving you the biggest advantage possible and giving legends like Wraith and Bangalore, who will try to close that distance to get in your face with close range weapons, no chance of getting the upper hand on you. But really, those are the biggest things you can do to become a better Pathfinder, who is easily the best legend for me in Apex Legends because of how he's not only great individually, but it's more the advantage that he can give to your entire team that makes him the best. Just remember, master the grapple, spend as much time as you can practicing with it, then use the zip line to get the best map position within the zone and to rush enemies when they least expect it, or to pull off a flank. And then use those long range weapons so you're playing to Pathfinder's strengths. But there we have it. That's my tips and tricks of Pathfinder and why he is the best legend in Apex Legends. I'll be doing a video soon on how to improve your movement in gunfights to help give you an even bigger edge. So make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel, smash that like button and share any other tips or tricks you've got for Pathfinder down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.